Hello, and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. Today's podcast is number 1461. The topic is nutrition, and the title is Recent Client Advice. So I've gotten some feedback that people like hearing, kind of like the discussions that I get into with my online clients. There's usually a kind of a nice variety of topics, and typically one or more of the topics is something that people commonly struggle with. So I figured we'd do another one of those today. So I want to just read through basically their journal. Like I'm not actually reading like their journal. That sounds really personal. But we have an online journal that is a Google Doc, and they can write in questions. I write in answers. And this is one of the features or kind of concepts that I love. Now I know I'm a coach, and I essentially I'm selling this service, but as a person who has been where you are, I've been the skinny fat kid. When I was in high school, I was 165 pounds, and you could grab fat rolls around my waist, and I've gained a lot of muscle. I'm now 283, and you can see my abs. I've gotten over twice as strong on squat, bench, and deadlift than I was when I was 18. I've done diets to lose weight. I've done diets to gain weight. I've kind of done everything, and I have a lot of education, which helps. But the idea is, as I was going through that process, what would have helped me get results faster, more efficiently, and with a lot less stress would have been like this kind of one-on-one coaching service where I was there. I grew up before internet, and there was no way to just have a conversation with somebody who was an expert, in the field. So I tried my best to learn as much as I could from magazines and things, but the ability now through internet and just technology in general is just amazing. I've been fortunate to help people all over the world, and it's super exciting through WhatsApp. We can always communicate no matter where they are in the world, and it makes it super fun. But that's what I love about this, and why I do my services this way, is I believe the one-on-one help is extremely helpful. So rather than just, downloading a diet program online that tells you what foods to eat and when, that's not what you're going to need. It is helpful to know what to eat, but how to fit that into your daily routine, how to use foods that you actually like. There's a lot more complexities to actually making that happen, and that's where one-on-one coaching I think is superior and super helpful. So what I want to do is just let's talk through this. So they asked a question about protein around a workout time. So I saw in their notes that they said they typically have some kind of small portion of fruit or juice or coffee with something before workouts. And I said, that's great, definitely try to get some energy in there. I said, but why not, let's throw a little bit of protein in before the workout as well. So sometimes their meals might be just maybe it's a banana, and then they go work out. And I'm like, that's a hell of a lot better than fasted workout. Meaning you don't work out. You don't eat before you work out. That is horrible, and that will absolutely mess up your metabolism. You lose a bunch of muscle, and you might weigh less, but you're not going to necessarily look better. So we have talked about fasted exercise. It's podcast number 614 if you want to go back and check that out. It's a nutrition podcast titled The Effects of Caffeine-Fueled Fasted Workouts. So I used to do the whole wake up in the morning before you eat anything, do an hour on the step mill, and you'll lose a lot of muscle. You're not going to maximize body composition. They've gone through and shown 1.5 million studies that prove this, so it's no longer even arguable that it's just a bad idea. You just shouldn't do it. But you can learn more about that, podcast 614, if you want to check that out. So we were talking, and what I wrote back she wrote the question, is protein before a workout is best? ? I always make sure I get it in right after workout. My wording here is a little weird, so I wanted to make sure I understand correctly, and that was in reference to a statement she made earlier. So I wrote, yes, whole food protein or powdered protein should be consumed before a workout and after workout. Now, this client and I are talking about she's already regulated her calories, her protein, her timing is really good. And now we're getting into the nittier type details. And she's like, what's the next steps I can do? And these are some of those next steps. Getting in a small protein source before the workout, getting in a protein source after the workout. Both of those are to maximize muscle tissue. So that's super helpful. So that's why we're talking about this. So I wrote, continued to write. Why before? Well, when we work out, we cause muscle tissue damage on purpose, and it's good for us, but it does cause damage. We then want dietary protein to be used to repair that damage, but actually not only repair it to what it was, but to repair it better than what it was. The body can only do this when dietary protein is present in the bloodstream. If we wait until after the workout, all the muscle damage now has to be addressed while we also go through the rest of our daily activities, which also cause small muscle damage and body, tissue damages and demands on repair. So the muscle repairing body, muscle building process from the workout has to be completed while going through daily activity demands for repairs and building. So if we consume protein ahead of the workout, we actually can start mitigating some of the damage we're creating while we work out. So by the end of the workout, you have less unaddressed damage, which helps to get more complete recovery and full adaptation by the next workout. So protein before a workout helps you recover faster and make greater adaptations to your workouts by starting the process during the workouts itself. And then I wrote why after. Well, all the reasons we already know. So to fuel full muscle repair and building throughout the rest of the day. But this is something that when clients get to the stage of already controlling calories, protein, timing, like distribution throughout the day, are they doing, carbs around times of activity, fats around times of, inactivity? These are some more of those next steps that they can take, is having a protein source in their bloodstream before they work out. That really does help. Now, the closer you get to the workout, the more refined the protein source has to be. I don't want to eat a steak right before I start working out. That takes way too long to digest. But a protein powder is very good. You can also do, kind of broken down forms of protein. Like you don't want a complex protein mixed with fats. So you wouldn't want, like, say, nuts. They're going to have protein in them, but they have a ton of fat in them, and that slows down the digestion. So you want protein that can be digested within your bloodstream quickly. Protein powders are great for that. Even like Greek yogurt is a good way to get some protein if you're eating like 30 to 60 minutes before the workout. There's other options, but powders are just easiest and simplest. But doing that before the workout, it really does help kind of address some of the muscle damage and repair while you're working out. So then you have less unaddressed damage after the workout, which then allows you to better repair and deal with that damage. So this is a small nuance, but it's a fun one to kind of play with. She then says, when you say I eat well enough to push forward, which is one of the comments I made, she was worrying if her food was kind of not optimal, and she's kind of bummed on herself about kind of not being consistent enough with her calories and protein and things. And I said, hey, could we be doing things better? Sure. But you're doing well. Don't beat yourself up. You're doing enough to move forward. So that's what she's referencing. So she says, when you say I eat well enough to push forward, how can I do better? Is there anything specific you would recommend for me? I listened to your latest podcast on nutrition, and I know I need to do a better job of managing my food than just being more consistent. Is there anything else? And she asked about like her numbers for calories, her numbers for protein, and just asking if there's something she can do to make changes. What she's finding is she's by all definitions physically fit. She looks great. She weighs 130 pounds, and she's just kind of bummed by that number. She's annoyed by that number. She wants to continue to get leaner, but while also building muscle. So her body, she would like it to continue to go down, like the scale to go down, but she seems to just kind of be stuck around this 130 that just never seems to change. So I wrote a couple thoughts on that. So I wrote 130 may be your best weight. You may lose fat and build muscle while staying at 130. We don't know yet. We don't know that yet, but that is 100% of the time eventually what happens to everyone who lifts weights and eats well. You'll reach what's called a set point, in that the rate of muscle growth and fat loss negate each other, and you hold your weight. So, for example, I've been between 280 and 285 pounds for 2 years. So I've been within a 5-pound range for 2 years, but I look vastly different. when I initially got to that weight versus now that I'm holding that weight. So I don't really care what I weigh. I just want to look awesome. So I don't have any intention of pushing my weight just to see it move, nor do I want to prevent my weight from moving if that were to be what was best for my overall look. It sounds like you're in the same situation. You also want to look awesome. So if your weight changes, okay. If it doesn't, okay. We just want your muscularity and leanness to improve. And if that's the case, then whether you stay at 130 or go down isn't really our focus. Instead, our focus is on our photos that we exchange to kind of see her body compositional changes and the fit of her clothes. So do you look and feel leaner? That's what we care about. So I'm aware the 130 is a nemesis at this point, but you may be villainizing the number when the number shouldn't be the focus. And the fact you stayed at that number while looking visibly leaner, which she has, is actually a huge accomplishment. It shows you've worked hard to find your set point. So the next steps of nutrition may not be feasible with the balance of priorities in your life. And this is the other part I kind of made to her. Is the next step would be to eliminate any unplanned foods, to essentially limit all foods to homemade, fresh meals. So you'd want to create 2 to 3 options for a pre-workout meal, 2 to 3 options for a post-workout meal, 2 to 3 options for daily meals and snacks, and then never vary from them at all. We'd also ensure that each option had the right digestive timing to carry you to the next meal, but not digest too quickly or take too long. These are steps I go through with people who want to compete and possibly win a pro card in aesthetics, which I've helped people do. But these steps and eating these meals has to be set as a higher priority than all other things, which is likely too much stress and doesn't at all fit your current life goals. But we can play with the concepts to some degree to help us push a little into this concept, but not have it be overwhelming where it feels like we're failing all the time. So here's what we want. Now, before I read the rest part, what I wanted to point out to her was the first point is that 130, she looks great. She's getting noticeably leaner in her photos. She's feeling better in her clothes. So whether she weighed 130 or not, like if she didn't know what she weighed, we would see progress in the photos. She would feel progress in the way her clothes fit. And we would just maybe assume that the weight was changing. But it's neat that the weight isn't changing, meaning that she's kind of at this awesome place where she's building muscle and losing fat at the same time. So I understand that she's been tracking her weight as a means of motivation to get from being overweight to where she is now. But eventually the weight does just kind of plateau. Because for you to go any leaner, you would have to sacrifice building muscle tissue. Go any lighter, you would have to sacrifice building muscle tissue, which she doesn't want to do. So you might be motivated by weight change at the start of your diet, but then eventually you have to change your focus to actually be on body composition, not on weight loss. And that's just kind of seems like where she's at. And then the next point I was trying to make to her was when she's worried about what are the next steps, how do I go faster? How do I go faster? How do I go faster? We have to realize that the more percentage I put into, more percentage of my resources, my energy, my focus, my efforts, I put into the nuances of nutrition, the less resources, energy, and focus I have for other things, such as her kids, her spouse, her other odds and ends that she does all day, like her job, like things like that. Like we have to give less and less to other things. So if it's like, okay, well, I have to eat this exact food at this exact time, what do you do when your kids get sick? What do you do whenever, that you have to run the dog to the vet or you have to go help a neighbor with something? And too often people set their goals so freaking strict that they end up feeling like they're failing all of the time and they get discouraged. But it's like, actually, you're doing well. You're just failing this really weirdly nuanced aspect. So maybe instead of moving 98% forward, you're only moving, 88% forward. People forget that they're still moving forward. They're still making progress, So I have clients, sometimes they'll miss a week in the gym because of chaos at work and travel and things, but they still ate well. And they'll be so discouraged. And they're like, I feel like I'm falling behind. And I'm like, you're totally fine. Your nutrition was on point all freaking week. You ate random ass foods because that's what you had to do. But you hit your calories, you hit your protein, your distribution was pretty good. You're still moving forward. You're still making progress. So don't get discouraged and don't quit, because you're actually succeeding and you're going to quit. So you're going to quit while you're succeeding. It's just we weren't succeeding to that nth degree that they wanted. So it's important to kind of keep all these things in perspective. So what I ended up telling her was I said, let's be within our targets, our calorie and protein and distribution targets, out of 12 out of 14 days. I typically have people aim for 10 out of 14. So I said, let's bump up that challenge a little bit. Let's try to get 12 out of 14. And then create 2 to 3 options per meal and try to stick with only those as often as possible. But I said, what most athletes lose sight of is being in your targets matters more than anything else. So eat anything you have to in order to hit your targets, even if it isn't the best, quote unquote, foods. If you're in your targets, you're making progress. So if you have to eat outside of your normal schedule, your normal foods, don't be discouraged. And I put that in capital letters. If you're hitting your targets, you're still moving forward. So I thought that was kind of fun to share. We go on and talk about some other things, but I did like her nutrition review. So for example, with clients, I go into their nutrition tracking apps. If they use a tracking app, they'll share with me their username and password. I log in and I look at what they're doing each day and give them advice. So for example, her macronutrient targets, her training day calories, her range is between 1600 to 1700. Her non-training days is between 1400 to 1500, and her daily protein is between 120 to 140 grams. Then our distribution is try to have a third of her calories and protein within the first 1/3 of the day, a third of her calories and protein within the second 1/3 of the day, and then the final third of her calories and protein in the final third of the day. So I looked through, and on October 6th, she had 1,593 calories and 130 grams of protein. Great. So good on calories, good on protein, good on distribution. So I wrote food choices, very good. Overall, all the foods this day are great and matched what you needed at each meal. Having the Oreos at night, which she did, would typically be a no-no food if we were approaching this as a contest client. But that's because they cause a spike in blood sugar, which lessens fat loss following that kind of blood sugar peak. However, you actually did a trick that I often use with clients, which is to pair something high fat but still controlled within their total calorie limit that can blunt the blood sugar response, which are the almonds that she actually ate with the Oreos. So you kept the meal within the calorie target. You paired the sugary food with a high fat food, slow digesting food, which helped. So not all high fat foods count though. So I said you actually did a great job. This is a great way to get in a treat for the day. The best time for treats, though, is before a workout. They provide a high spike in blood sugar, which the body needs during the workout for quick available energy. So before a workout is the best time for a treat. The second best time is any other meal if paired with a slow digesting fatty food, but with the meal still within normal caloric limits for the meal the treat is included within. So that was pretty cool. So I went through, I gave her advice for the next day. The next day she had good calories, good protein, good distribution as well. Her food choices, she had some candy and donuts. And as long as it was before a workout, it's no worries. In this meal, the candy would be fast digesting as well as the pretzel she actually had. The protein shake wouldn't have slowed it down much. So if this was a pre-workout meal, these foods are totally okay. But one thing I look at is the caloric content. So the meal she had before her workout was 515 calories, which before a workout is about the amount of calories you would burn in the workout, actually maybe a little bit more. So we'd like to see our pre-workout meals be between 50 to 80% of what the workout would require. And now I told her I haven't mentioned this before because it didn't matter for our goals, but if you want to know these small things, I figured I'd explain them. So your workouts would burn roughly around 400 calories. And this is for her muscle tissue, her style of workouts. So we want our pre-workout meals to be roughly between 200 to 320 calories with a mix of carbs and protein, which is usually around 15 to 40 grams of protein is best for your muscle size and type of training, and the rest can be carbohydrates for calorie-wise. So you'd want a pre-workout meal of 60 to 160 calories from protein and the remaining calories from carbs to equal a total of 200 to 320 calories. To give context to this, though, these types of things really only matter when someone is trying to go from a body fat level leaner than their natural set point to an even leaner body fat. So say someone naturally stays around 18 to 20% body fat. They've dialed it down to 10%. but they need to get to 6 to 8% for competition. Their pre-workout meal calories and carb protein distribution is something we would look at and refine. So for your goals, this balance of calories and carb and protein distribution is something to be mindful of if you want to play with it. But if you're not perfect, no worries. As long as you're having carbs and protein before your workouts, then you're doing what you need to do to move forward in progress. Because we are not yet at like the 10% body fat where all these smaller nuances matter. So I wanted to share with her some of the nuances that we do pay attention to when you do want to get somebody down to like refined body fat percentages. I just think it's kind of good to be aware of those things. That way you know what they are and what they exist. But it's so important to keep them in context. Overall, what really matters is matching your calories, your protein, and then the distribution of those throughout the day. From there, everything else is just icing on the cake. But at least you have the cake. So you have to make the cake first before you worry about the icing. Too many people worry about the icing and they don't even have the cake ready. So I thought this would be tons of fun to share these kind of nuances. If you have any questions of your own, just reach out. Our email is brutalirongym@gmail.com. I really love being able to help people because a lot of people have stress and worry and just emotional and mental, troubles with food. Yeah, but yet you can explain a lot of this, you can educate yourself, and it can really make it a lot calmer for you and a lot easier. So if you have any questions, reach out. Our email is brutalirongym@gmail.com. If you want any help with coaching, we do nutritional coaching for only $100 a month. So just $100 a month. I'll check in on your apps. I'll give you the numbers to reach. I'll give you the foods to give. And I'll give you all the feedback that I give to clients like this. Okay? And we do it every single week. So if you're interested in that, again, just reach out. Our email is brutalirongym@gmail.com. Well, thank you for listening. I hope this was interesting. I hope that gave you some insight into some new things or weird things. Hope you got something from it. So if you like our podcast, whether it's this one or just our podcast in general, please consider sharing it. The more people we share it with, it does help the podcast grow. So that way it shows up higher in like searches and things like that. But really the whole idea is for people to benefit from good quality, free information. And they only benefit from it if they're aware of it. So if you don't mind, please consider sharing the podcast. You can share it on social media. You can share it in a conversation with a friend. Just anytime you hear somebody struggling with some nutrition or training, aspects, let them know that we exist and encourage them to reach out. So thank you if you do that. Thank you to the patrons of the podcast, people who financially support the podcast. The podcast is well over $1,000 a year for hosting costs. I give an hour to it every day, and we want to keep it for free. The donations we do get help cover some of that cost, which I really, truly appreciate. If you don't donate, but you want to kind of keep it going and keep it for free, I do appreciate it. Even just like $5 a month, it does add up when everybody does it. So thank you for those who consider that. Our website is where you can donate. It's www.brutalirongym.com, and you can sign up for a one-time donation, a monthly donation, a yearly donation. Anything you can give is greatly appreciated. Thank you. If you like the information we share in our podcast, you can find more from us on our social media channels on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube under the name Brutal Iron Gym. If you have any questions, feedback, suggestions, anything you want to know, let us know at our email, brutalirongym@gmail.com. As always, I hope this was helpful, and thank you for listening.